everyone, to another episode of Humanity 2.0 podcast. Here we have Phillip Quinones. Phillip, it's nice to meet you. We're glad to have you and discuss things humanity and mental health, which I'm so excited to meet you on. So welcome. And do you go by Phil or by Phillip?
Phil is fine. He's perfectly fine.
All right, Phil. The first question I love to ask people is, how do you, in your personal experience, define humanity?
That's a good question. It's a really interesting question. A vessel of, I think, a very incomprehensible way of life. And I say that because we're just vessels of unconscious and feelings. And with that being said, that has then shown itself through our different emotions and our behaviors that have kind of gotten us through our evolution, and at this point in time has created these very unique different types of systems and ways of life. And with that comes, great positivity and great experiences with people, but then overall still has its challenges when it comes to a lot of controversy and a lot of negativity. But I think humanity in and of itself is trying its best. It's living out through its experiences of what's kind of inside of us as people of just flesh and of a brain. And so I think that it's a unique perspective. I think we're different than other different types of animals and different types of kingdoms, but I'm kind of glad that we're here, and I'm kind of glad that I got to be here, whereas most people have never been able to be here. So I guess it's how I kind of look at humanity like that.
And when it comes to your humanity, how you've affected the world and what's been, thrust upon you in your experience, would you say that you have a positive outlook, or would you say that you're kind of 50-50, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm more objective. I don't think I necessarily have a pessimistic or optimistic view of anything. I like facts. I like things that make sense. I think I was born to really look outside of things, which is what makes me a very helpful and I think competent therapist and coach for my clients, because looking at the world objectively means that there are certain people that have taken their humanity of having their own subjective feelings, and for the macro and betterment of the evolution of our species, have been able to create and provide different insight or inventions or technology or structure for a lot of people. And so for me, even though I may be doing that on a daily basis, one-to-one, I think that with my objective perspective of things, it's able to spark conversations. It's able to give insights to people that would have not experienced or have learned those things without their own intuition of finding out something different outside of their subjective experience. So that's kind of how I more look at life, and what I'm able to offer is more of an objectiveness. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just, it is what it is. And it's a great feeling because I don't have to feel it. It is a fact. It's something that regardless of me going out of this experience tomorrow will always be a fact or can always be improved on. And it doesn't matter how I feel about it. So it's a very freeing thing that I have that I hope to give to other people. And usually that's how it kind of happens, that when people are feeling too much, either pessimistic or way too much optimistic, it's kind of bringing them back and centering them of saying, okay, let's look at this differently, because the way maybe you've been looking at it has not serviced you in the best of ways. So let's maybe do an audit and see what we could change. And sometimes my perspective really does help people.
And so you work in a professional setting as a mental health professional. You work with couples, you work with businesses, you've worked with so many various types of people, and you've had the ability to observe them, to coach them. Are there any examples that you have of just insights on humanity or people in general that maybe that we're missing and we're overlooking, that we should really kind of be inspecting a little bit closer to kind of connect with our fellow humans?
Absolutely. I think the common thing is that people are Probably hurting more than you think. And even though you may love them and like them and support them, people are hurting in their own different type of ways. And those may be from mild to moderate to severe spectrums of hurt and what that looks like. But the human experience, especially from a philosophical standpoint, is suffering. And with that being said, hopefully you strive to not suffer as much as you need to. Because if we did not have this structure and humanity did not evolve and revolutionize and industrialize and did what it did over points of time, the world be out to get you. Either a snake, an animal, the weather, like it's going to come for you. And it's going to be very hard to survive. So the animalistic experience of surviving is nothing different now that we have socialization with each other. That's brain telling you trying to survive or trying to protect yourself from fear or trying to protect yourself from danger is so much more older, millions of years older than this new perspective of being able to have consciousness and verbally communicate and do math, like those type of things. Like our brain is evolved. And so what I know that's a word of perspective, but I'm saying that to say that people are suffering in their own way and people have feelings. So stay curious. That's the number one thing I give to the next up and coming therapist. That's something I remind myself of is stay curious about people, even when you're upset, even when you sense danger, even when you're fearful, even when you don't want to, even when you want to be self-centered, when you want to make it about you. Stay curious. People unconsciously, and they think that it's conscious, but unconsciously do the things that they do for a reason. You have a reason, even if you don't know what that reason is. And you are motivated most of the time by how you feel about those reasons. And so understand it about people, your romantic relationships, your family, your friends, your coworkers, that person at the light that you want to flick off because they cut you off, that rude customer service, the waitress, even the animals around you that want to bite you if they're scared, and compared to the ones that are just lovey-dovey on you. There is a reason that all of us do what we do. So stay curious about that because we're nothing but vessels of feelings.
Do you feel that in your time that you've worked with people that level of pain has changed dramatically from being like post-COVID and going through all of these things that we're facing, in the world with politics, et cetera, just everything? Do you feel like the levels are changing and that it's becoming different now?
Absolutely not. It was always there. It's just that now there is an opportunity for that to be exposed. So it doesn't matter if it took a pandemic. It doesn't matter if it took history books, whether it was a social movement of change. Those things have always been there. And it just so happens that we have the infrastructure in order to objectively measure what's happening, because now all we have to do is collect data on stuff. So when you saw hospitalization, mental health professionals in their caseload, how many log hours a healthcare professional had to work during COVID, increase in the suicide hotline, or increase in app, whether it was a mental health or a wellness app. All of those things helped us measure the problems that were already there. Those issues are things that you fundamentally have. You just had to really face that within yourself because now you have to isolate yourself. And now in the macro, you're worried and anxious and fearful of what is to come and how the world was going to do that. Now, granted, I think we did a great job being a believer in medical science of handling the situation, obviously compared to back in the day of the Spanish flu or the Black Plague, taking out more than half the population of the world. I think we did a pretty good job. But I think that it just exposed what was already there. People were already depressed. People were already having relationship issues. People were already anxious about stuff. People were already masking maybe some very severe trauma within their life. And now they're back in an environment that they can't really leave. So those symptoms or that experience is perpetuated. So now they're in flight or fight mode, or freeze in those situations. And I'm not necessarily projecting, but I think that would be like kind of my statement on if there's been a change. No, it's just being exposed now.
Now that there's more open conversation and that there are apps now where people can dial up a therapist as opposed to just going in office, how has that changed the world of therapy and mental health, do you think? Because I've seen it evolve in amazing ways. You know, people are quick to talk to someone online now instead of just keeping it to themselves or thinking, oh no, I can't go see someone. But now it's so accessible. So everything's changed, it feels like.
Yeah, and I think that's great that people have access to healthcare in any type of form and capacity, especially from the mental health standpoint of either a live person being able for you to have access for, or for something that has been a well thought out product that can provide that service for you and you pretty much handle your own mental health. I think it's great that we have people that have created products, not only from a capitalistic standpoint to benefit from, but also because these people actually probably maybe do care about the outcome of others. But as somebody who is also on the side trying to pursue and create something like that, I also know the struggle when it comes to receiving a therapist. And so one of the issues that people have statistically is they spend over 20 hours trying to find a professional. And then it takes about 3 different therapists and 3 different visits in order for them to find the right fit. And so that is a problem that I want to solve because, again, we know that intervention time is a huge predictor in any physical or any type of mental problem or occurrence. So I don't want somebody spending that much time with that. So if you have the app is better than not having it. Or if you have access to a therapist, it's better to try and keep trying in order for your symptoms not necessarily to worsen. The accessibility doesn't necessarily correlate with outcomes much, but I'm glad that those tools are there that we didn't have before that are able to help people, whether it's very cheaply in a third world country, if they still have access to internet and they have access to technology, to obviously a more modern, civilized country that obviously has that. So I think it's great that we had that immediacy for some type of intervention for mental health.
I like that you talk about reducing that time frame of intervention. That is so fascinating. Are you working on something or are you just kind of exploring that area?
Yeah, I've worked on something, but I had to take a pause because it takes money. But I do want to capitalize on creating a self-learning machine for AI for people to have their own access to grow with their mental health. So it's not necessarily an intervention, but you will be able, and hopefully I work with people and I have enough money to invest one day for you to be able to speak about all of your life and then be able to continuously grow instead of something's happening right now and you want to address what's happening right now. So it's a big dream. It's a company that one day I want to IPO if I get lucky. It's a company that I want to invest decades growing when I am able to take that route. So that's the big picture of really what I want to do, because what I realize is, if every single mental health licensed professional in the United States had a 30-person caseload and did that 50 weeks out of the year, or maybe even 48, it would still not touch 1% of the population. Oh, and that's people that are actually doing therapy, not research, not running their own business, like one-on-one FaceTime and really trying to help people. So what does that tell us? It means that we're not enough. If Phillip did this for 48 weeks out of the year, for 30 different people all the time, for 30 years, it would be a lot of people and a lot of lives would be impacted. But in the macro of 1 out of every 8 billion, 1 out of every 8 people on this earth has or will have a mental health issue, there has to be a third intervention. And technology is the only answer for that type of intervention. So we need to create products and services outside of the professionals that provide them in order to address this problem, because Phillip and his fellow colleagues are not going to be enough, even though they are still doing the work. So I realized that very early on.
I really love asking mental health professionals why they got started, what led them to the path. So can you tell us What started the path for you, and what inspired you to go this route with your profession?
Yeah, it was happenstance. I did not plan to be a therapist. I didn't know what that entailed. I didn't have a dream about that when somebody asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was just so happens that I didn't really care about where I went to college. I really didn't. I could have gone pretty much anywhere. I really did not care. And what happened was I was trying to go pre-med and I realized very quickly I wasn't good at biology. And then after failing that biology class, I took a look at myself and said, hey, why this is not for you. It's just not connecting with my brain. So I wanted to go sports management, which is again something that I cared about being an athlete. So what ended up happening was you needed to get a C or better in accounting 101, sports management intro, and a PE class. Obviously got A's in PE and in the sports management class. But then I got a 0.04 points away from a C. So I had a C minus. And so I emailed the person who controlled the sports management major. And I said, hey, I have a 0.04 point difference between that and a C. Could you still accept me? He said, well, I can't accept you because what if somebody had a 0.05? And I was like, no, I can't do this. So I'm not going to pay for this again. I'm not going to waste another semester doing this. No. So I went to my advisor and I said, look, based on all the credits that I had coming out of high school, because I did dual enrollment. So I have my associates coming out of high school. And then I've already been in college for, I think, 2 years at that point. I was like, what can get me out of here in 2 years minimum? And she said, psychology. I said, let's go for that. I knew psychology was a study of human behavior and the mind, but didn't know what I was going to do with it. So I graduated and I had no idea you can't do jack squat with a undergraduate degree in psychology. You can't do anything. So I did an audit of myself and I said, what do you enjoy? What do you value? What could you be paid to do if you weren't paid for it? What could you financially benefit over time? And what aligns with your purpose? And mine was, I'm a good teacher. I'm very introverted. I've seen the world from the outside. People would say I'm pretty much an old soul. I've always had the bigger picture of things. I liked helping people with real problems. I liked having meaningful conversations. And so I was like, that sounds like a therapist to me. And then 6 months later, I was in grad school. So that's kind of the story of how I ended up here. So everything was happenstance and everything had not been planned, but it was a good decision for myself. And I think that it's doing so well so far for me.
Yeah, sounds like it. And you're very analytical, so that helps as well when you're working with patients. You mentioned you did like a self inventory, right? You went back and looked at yourself and decided what would be the best path. Did you do that on your own, or did someone kind of give you that idea to do a self reflection and determine where you should go?
No, I did that on my own. So I grew up, I'm an only child and my mom almost had me at 40. And my mom comes from a Caribbean background and she was very book smart. And so she strapped herself up for her own boots and got her master's. She has 3 degrees as well and has been nothing but an unmeasurable, unconditional love and experience for myself. But with that being said, objectively, I have spent more time and will always have spent more time by myself than anything. And so that means I'm in my mind a lot. And so I think naturally people are more conscientious than other people. I think when you are very introverted, you have less social interactions with people. So you're naturally on the outside of the world. And so I've always audited myself and I always self-reflected on everything, things that had to do with me and things that didn't. And so what did I do wrong? What did I do right? Why did this person respond like this? Why did they react this way? Why does that bother them? Why is that such a big deal to them? Why do people treat each other this way? So I've done that audit on myself and I've actually made it a lot easier for people around me because I've never been somebody who've had to manage and monitor. Once I had a ball in my hand and I did good in school and never got suspended, never got detention, never been to jail, those type of things, you just have to kind of leave me alone and whatever I experience, we're going to talk about it. So I kind of did the audit of myself, figuring out what I wanted to do all the time. And I had to do something. And so I couldn't go teach and be a teacher. All you need is an undergraduate degree to be a teacher, but that's not my stop. I definitely knew that wasn't my stop. And so I was like, okay, I have the mind. I don't like school. I hate school, but I know that this is just a short chapter in light of the big picture. So I said, bro, I'm an introverted person. I don't like social interaction. I don't like groups. I don't like more than maybe two people at the most in any of my social interactions. I like quietness. I like being by myself. I like my space. I don't like to be bothered. So I was like, hey, one-on-one, meaningful conversation, real stuff, real problem solving, because human beings are complex and people want somebody who care about them. And I've been cared for, so I'm able to give that to somebody else. And so that lines up with my temperament and my purpose. And so, that's why I became a therapist.
In your work, can you recall any moments where you felt you made a really huge impact on a patient, on their life, and just like really help them connect with the world or help them connect with themselves so they could lead a better life?
Yeah. What's so great about that, Vanessa, is I don't know if I made an impact. And that's what's so beautiful that people have to start thinking about. Like, they want to take credit for what somebody did. And what's the most sacrificial job of being a therapist is that you can't take credit, which is a hard way for people to live because you need some validation for that, but it's always the client. So I don't care if they were going through a marriage issue and now they're great with their husband or their wife. I don't care if it's somebody with ADHD and they actually found time to focus on finishing their homework. I was having an eating disorder and now they have more energy because they have increased their food and their caloric intake. I have the ability every single time somebody walks in my office to create the most vulnerable space possible of kindness and non-judgment. And that then in turns allows somebody to self-reflect within themselves. And they can be able to cry and throw tantrums and be angry. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, you need this. That's great. This ain't got nothing to do with Phillip. I know it's not about me. You just need that space. And giving that people space, you will be surprised, again, when you stay curious about people, that you become their own mirror for them to see themselves. But Phillip is behind that mirror. And I pop out every now and then saying, okay, let's change that thought. Does that behavior serve you? Are we doing that to the best that we can? Let's improve this. Other than that, it's a self mirror and people change themselves. I just help them process that change and walk with them through that. So I really can't take credit for anybody changing of that. I just know that I try to give the best intent to create that space for them to change themselves.
Right. And if anything, you are creating that safe space that's necessary. So that's wonderful. I love that you create that for them. I'm sure they appreciate it very much. What would you say are, I guess, aspects about mental health that people just get wrong or they don't understand?
Yeah.
That's so important because the conversation of mental health is so strong now, which is wonderful, but there's always going to be misinformation or stigmas or, just anything out there that we need to clear up. So giving you that space, what would you say?
Right. Great question, Vanessa. That mental health is not about healing and is not about curing. It's about improvements. My job as a therapist is to process change through the ambivalence about what somebody wants to change. So that change can look very small to things that are very big and complex, but your cards have been given to you. If you were born with something, bipolar, schizophrenic, prone to more negative emotions, so you're more anxious, or at certain times you are very depressed, you have unfortunately been through real, definitive, traumatic events in your life. Phillip can't change that. So what we do is try to create improvements on how to manage that. You're going to have the same thoughts. You're going to have you're going to be still afraid of what caused trauma. You're still going to get triggered by that man or that woman that represents maybe a bad mom or dad or loved one. You're still going to get anxious being in front of people and you go to speak to them. We're just trying to improve that it's not as high or as impactful over a long period of time. So don't think that when you go to therapy, it is a cure or a healing definitively. No, it's about improvements. Okay. So Phillip has that and the client has that certain things just piss you off, but that does not mean you got to go destroy the world. There are certain things that I'm afraid of that I will maybe always be afraid of, but I don't have to always be in fear of those things. I may always have a certain attachment style that will always be that way, but then I don't want to be with the wrong woman that puts me down for having that attachment style. I may always be an introverted person, but at some point in time, I have to go network. I have to talk to people. So I'm not going to be on stage for 200,000 people around me, being an extrovert and be the life of the party, but I have to push to go interact with people, even though I'd rather be home in my own bed. So from the most severe mental health illnesses that are on the high spectrum and require a lot of complexity and a lot of structure to manage, to the more mild to moderate things who are dealt the cards that you are dealt with, you're coming with me to make improvements on that. So I don't want you to have depression, but it's okay for you to be depressed sometimes. I don't want you to have anxiety, but you're going to get anxious sometimes. Like, I don't want you to be traumatized, but bad things are going to happen to you because it's freaking life. I hope not very severe bad things, but bad things are going to happen. So accept that and know that we're just trying to have somebody walk with you to improve those things in your life. So that way you manage them really well for yourself.
So you mentioned being curious about people. What other tools could people use in their daily lives to help them on their mental health journeys?
I think it's a good analogy of you have the ability to listen twice as good as you speak. You'll be surprised of the power of listening to people. And listening doesn't mean I'm responding to you. Listening does not mean hearing you. Listening means sometimes interpreting the experience with somebody from nonverbals to the verbals about what they are going through. And again, people have a reason for why they respond the way that they respond. And so if you take you out of the problems you have or reactions that you would have towards something, and then look at just that person non-judgmentally, from their gender to their ethnicity to whether their SCS to their education to their height to their shade of eyes, no matter what it is on the outside, this is a vessel. There is a reason they do what they do. But if you keep putting yourself in there, you're only going to keep giving reactions to people and not responses. So listen, people are telling you what they are going through. People are showing you as well what they are going through. The problem is that sometimes people don't take a minute to say, okay, I really need to be attuned with this. And we can all be better at that. Me as a professional, I mess up sometimes too. And my clients get on me when I'm not at my best either. But you can always care more. You can always be kind more. You can always be more susceptible to maybe thinking somebody has something to say and maybe there's something that I don't know. But if I'm talking and I don't shut up, I'm not going to be able to receive it. And sometimes I only get one shot to do that. So listen twice as good as you're talking. Doing this is not benefiting anybody. Your advice doesn't benefit anybody. Your trying to see how big your brain is doesn't help anybody. So notice what you can contribute, but sometimes listening is sometimes all you have to do, because people know, and most of my clients know, what they need to change, because the negative feelings are telling them they need to change. So that's why they're in my office. So I don't really have to do a lot of the work. Even the other people in your life don't have to do a lot of work. They just need the space in order to do it, the support to do it, and they will do it themselves. I've had clients that have been on the spectrum. Just because they're autistic and they have ADHD, I don't sugarcoat it and say they still can't handle themselves. They need a little bit more work, but they know when they're doing right and wrong. And so it doesn't matter, even people that have those type of special needs, and that type of diagnosis. And if you don't, then it's definitely not an excuse.
Are there any things that you're working on currently, or works that you've done previously, books, etc.?
Yeah. So I actually just published my book not too long ago on Amazon. It is called Marriage Counseling, and it is the expert advice for a strong and lasting relationship. So I just posted it on Amazon on paperback, and it's on Kindle. And then if people needed to reach out to me for my coaching one-on-one or couples or any type of corporate as well, you can visit me at pqcoachingandconsulting.com. So taking on clients, I want to be able to take it worldwide and see how many people that I can individually help. Hopefully people will check that out. And if our paths cross, I'll be happy to help.
What a fresh perspective do you bring to the subject of marriage in that book?
Yeah, man. So couples is unique because imagine the complexity of one individual and how much they go through, and imagine two knuckleheads and the things that they go through and trying to work that out. So I was very passionate about creating a course, and unfortunately, it didn't get the traction that I thought it would. So I wanted to turn it into a book. So it's really the course within the book. You learn about yourself objectively and you learn about your partner objectively. So there are personality tests in there. There are audits of yourself. There are learning about what you value and your boundaries. And so the more you learn about that from your partner, you can say, okay, I've had this experience with this man, and maybe I've had this experience with women and anything in between. And I have my own interpretation of that. But let me stay curious and say, they do have an anxious versus avoidant personality type. Or, they value money more than maybe I do. So maybe that's why we're having controversies. Maybe they're more passive because of their natural personality and the things that they've gone through. Maybe they're more assertive. So I have about 4 or 5 personality assessments that you do. I have a couples assessment as well. And then it goes from that to, now that you know about each other, how do you communicate? You need a space to listen to the hurt and pain that somebody is going through. And it tells you maybe things that make you defensive when you have those type of conversations. There are things that help when it comes to communicating your wants and needs. So you have reflections, you have paraphrasing, have rephrasing, you have different defense mechanisms like stonewalling, like you have those type of perspectives that I teach within the book. And so hopefully when you go through that, because it is a long book, so it requires, some real discipline, you learn, and hopefully that improves your relationship with dating individually, but definitely as some type of couple. And so I'm very passionate about that, and sacrifice a lot of time and give my expertise on that. Oh, and apologies too. I had my original idea called the 3 A's, which is admitting, acknowledging, and accountability. So I teach that method of how to do that when it comes to apologies with people too. So a lot of things that I know, a lot of things that are out there and comprised in there, but then my own original ideas too. So just a lot that I want to give to couples, and hopefully if they read it and they really apply themselves, learn about each other, and then hopefully improve.
That sounds like a great book. Sounds like they could really get a lot out of it about themselves and also their partner. And then you can hear the you in the book. We totally need that. I've acknowledged that, when you're part of a marriage, yes, you're part of one, but there's still 2 people in there, and your personality, their personality, they're going to clash. And if you don't address, what it is that's conflicting, then, you're off to pretty rough terrain.
That's what self-improvement is for, is saying, hey, I wish I knew this sooner, but I can know it now. So going forward, I don't care if it was 10 years and you ordered the book. Maybe those 10 years weren't the best, but the next 10 can be the best. So that's all it is at that point in time saying, I want to improve and make my experience better. And then somebody else that I care about, their experience better too.
And what is that book called again?
It's called Marriage Counseling, Expert Advice for a Strong and Lasting Relationship.
Awesome. We will list the link so everyone can go check it out. Circling back to the subject of humanity, where do you see humanity as a whole going forward? Do you feel that, things are going to get better, or do you think we're going to be farther apart? What is your prediction?
What is my prediction? What's my hypothesis? I think people underestimate that at this point in time, every new day is better than it was yesterday. And you may have your own subjective opinions at the macro level, what's happening at the federal, the state level, in your county, at the federal level, changes in leaderships, changes in corporate structures, changes in laws. Yes. Okay. We can admit those and we can have conversations about those, and some things are out of our control. With that being said, nothing is better to be a human than now. We're living longer than ever. Our healthcare is the best. It's expensive, but we're not talking about the nuances of it. Our healthcare is the best. Our health is the best, even though obesity and whatnot. We have agriculture. We have the ability to go across the country. We have technology. Like, it's the best time objectively in human history than it was before. Like people have done a lot of work and have made a lot of sacrifices in order for all of us to get here. I don't care if it was white or black or orange or pink. People have made sacrifices. Have they been right and wrong? Of course. But I think overall it is better than what it used to be. And so because of that, it's something we take for granted because we think things can be better. But no, not even 60 years ago was damn near segregation. I don't know what that felt like, but I know that those people sacrificed for me to be here as a black male. So like, I'm not going to disrespect them by keep complaining about something I don't need to complain about anymore. Is it perfect? No. But I know that they did the work in order for me to have a better life. There are people that have created new technologies and products and infrastructure and systems in order for me to have a better life. My car is safe. I don't have to worry about like danger being in nature because I have a roof over my head and heat and clothes and shoes. And sometimes even in other parts of the world, they don't have those things. So even water, even fresh water, I don't think about water, but we do. So I think humanity is in a good place. And I think that it can always be better, but I don't think that it's worse in any capacity objectively than what it used to be. And so it gives a real testament of what was, who was, and what was done for getting us to this point. But I'm very grateful for it. And I think moving forward, we're going to be better in the long run. And it's going to be mishaps. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be wars. There's going to be things that are bad because that's just how nature not nature, but how humanity repeats itself. But overall, like it's no better time than it was yesterday. So I try to be, I guess, optimistic about that. And I think that's my kind of prediction hypothesis of what's to come.
So in addition to actively listening and being curious about people, what is your message to humanity?
Ooh, I think I still say this all the time. Nobody was you, nobody is you, and nobody will ever be you. So within this experience, try to have the best that you can possibly have. That can be different facets of your life. And if it's a mental health, something you need to address, then address it. This life is so short. It's going by so fast. And the people that could have been here would never be here. So getting up to this number and you being one of those 8 billion people is mathematically so unique. And yes, it's troubles. And yes, it's suffering in and of itself. Yes, we are prone to more negative feelings than positive ones, but that is all up to you. I know everybody's cards are different. Measuring what success may look like for you, measuring what joy and fulfillment looks like for you, because that is always going to be you. And it's unique that you are going to be the only one to ever experience that. So do what you would like to do. Make yourself the best person that you can be. More people want to help than ever. There are resources out there more than ever. There's knowledge out there and education out there more than ever. So there's really no excuse of why you really don't become the best version of you in any type of capacity. So again, nobody was you, nobody is you, and nobody will ever be you. And I think that's a gift that we can't even begin to really be grateful for.
That's an excellent message. Is there anything just burning inside that you want to share with the listeners? Anything at all, any subject, any area?
No, just continue to listen to Humanity 2.0. I think this has been amazing. I think they have heard so many unique perspectives of people that have come before me on your show and myself now. So I think you're doing a great thing, getting these answers, these perspectives, and hopefully our conversation really helped them.
Awesome. Well, Phillip Quinones, author and mental health professional, it has been amazing to meet you, hear your perspective, and share your work and also your words with the world. I think you're doing amazing things too, and keep offering people that space because we all need that space. And the fact that you're out there helping others work through their stuff, but also see different perspectives, that's a game changer. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Vanessa.